welcome back to the Flicks Forum podcast with Jesse and MJ, where each episode we go back and look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. This is our 19th day of Podmas, where every day up to Christmas we're putting out an episode. Today, we have Netflix's 67th film. It's a 2018 romantic comedy, When We First Met. It's directed by Ari Sandel and it stars Adam DeVine, Alexandra Daddario, Shelley Hennig, Andrew Bachelor, and Robbie Amell. Hi, MJ.
How are you, mate?
We're getting so close to
I am
Christmas.
so proud of our dedication to Podmas so far. We've done so bloody well, and we're getting rewarded with good films. We're getting rewarded with good listeners.
Yes.
The Flicks Forum brand is just going bananas.
Going nuts. And I'm just loving, seeing, anyone else that does Podmas, hats off to you.
Yeah, no, huge effort.
Credit. Massive
Huge
credit.
effort.
So, rom-com today. This is going to be interesting because...
We needed a rom-com.
We needed a rom-com.
We did need a rom-com.
And usually, you're more of a rom-com-y fan than possibly I may be.
Pretty susceptible to rom-coms. But you know what? You make a bad rom-com, I'm not going to give you a pass mark.
So this could be good. This could be very interesting. I don't know. Where are we going to sit on this one? Are we going to agree? Are we going to disagree?
I can't get a sense if you like
And
this
the
or not.
nerves are racking me. I'm like, ooh, am I going to agree with MJ or am I going to just hate what he says?
This is good. What do you normally think about rom-coms?
Not a massive fan.
Not a massive fan. Yeah.
Not my favourite type of film.
No.
Won't go out of my way to watch them. So this one's one that I wouldn't have watched if it wasn't on our Netflix list.
Cool. What's your fast flicks then, Jesse?
My fast
I
flicks-
always start, so...
Okay, I'm happy to start
your
today.
quick summary of the film.
My quick summary is always very quick. A guy goes back in time multiple times to get the girl of his dreams.
Yeah, you didn't like this film, I can tell already.
What do you mean? That was a good fast flick.
You don't start a movie you like with the words, a guy.
A guy. I don't name
I know
characters.
you don't
I
name characters. I know you don't
characters.
name characters.
I try to be different. Try to break the mold.
I could tell.
Try to be revolutionary.
My fast flicks for When We First Met. Time travel is back on Netflix's agenda. This time in rom-com form. With Noah getting the opportunity to go back in time 3 years in order to have a chance to make the girl of his dreams fall in love with him.
Nice.
We've had a bit of time traveling on Netflix, was my point.
Yeah. Arc.
We had one...
Naked.
I was like, we had one recently, or somewhat recently.
Yeah. Seems recent.
So Naked was not dissimilar, this whole Groundhog Day
Naked
type
was
setup.
very similar to this setup.
Arc was very similar. So in 67 films, we've had 3 time loop time travel movies.
And Robbie Amell's been in 2 of them.
Yeah, he has. So not only is Robbie Amell a Netflix specialist, this being his 3rd film.
Yeah. The other one being?
The other one being The Babysitter.
The Babysitter, yes. We enjoyed that one.
We did enjoy that one. And we enjoyed Arc. Bloody oath did we enjoy
did.
Arc. But Robbie Amell is the time travel specialist.
We've liked 2 of his films, so I'm getting concerned.
That's funny.
Can he get 3 out of 3?
How did it not click that he's... No, Jesse, come on.
What do you mean? We've liked 2 of them. How can we like all 3? That's the question.
Yeah, I did like 2 of them.
All right, let's have a look. We like to see if we found anything out about this film. What did you find?
The film was filmed entirely in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And due to scheduling conflicts, Alexandra Daddario only filmed for 2 weeks. So she was also filming We've Always Lived in the Castle.
Yeah.
So to accommodate this, there was basically a lot of night shoots that went for 16 plus hours, basically to film a lot of the Halloween party scenes.
What a party that would have been.
At least she was wearing the same
Over and
outfit in
over.
all of them. Poor Adam DeVine had 6 outfit changes.
He did have a lot of changes, didn't he?
But she was only there for 2 weeks, and she's a pretty main character in this film. That would have had everyone else working their asses off.
Agree. So once Adam, what's his name? Adam DeVine. Once he was cast as the lead, the producers asked him to look over the script, and he rewrote it for his lines to fit his comedy style.
I found that so interesting.
I think that shows in this film.
Before I knew that, my thoughts on his character were like, oh, well, only Adam DeVine could have played that character.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to know that...
That's a clever way of doing it, I think.
You know what? It really is,
If you cast someone and they've got a distinct style, it's like, here's the script, have a look. How would you change the delivery of those lines? Or how would you change the dialogue? And it's like, well, I'd say it like this. Cool, do it.
I think it can work. I think there's an element where a character is written in a certain way that works for a really strong narrative, and you need to find someone who's going to bring that to life. In a film like this, absolutely, yeah, go nuts with it. Especially with a comedy, where you can make it work. And Adam DeVine's got a pretty distinct sort of humour.
Yeah, sure does.
And that was Adam DeVine was Noah. Like that was as simple as that.
Cool. What did you think about the Back in Time singing of the song by him?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you like Back to the Future?
Yeah, I don't mind Back.
Okay.
I just thought it was clever and quirky.
Very clever, very quirky. I like Back to the Future. The films are great.
It actually worked well.
Good.
Yeah, it actually worked well again with Adam DeVine doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Last one I had was so we've covered The Babysitter on this podcast. So it shares the same producers. McG produced this. Plus, there's 3 cast members who are all in The Babysitter together, which is a pretty cool little connection.
So this was 9th of February. Babysitter.
This was released, just in time.
Babysitter probably wasn't too much earlier. Yeah, it was 2017. I remember that.
Yeah.
But, so it's probably they were really sort of all in the same
Close,
wheelhouse at the time. And
9th of Feb, just in time for Valentine's Day.
Didn't even think that, but yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep an eye on Valentine's Day next year because undoubtedly Netflix will be pumping out an original film that's
around that time.
Because they did it last
year. It's the sequel to. I'm pretty sure Valentine's Day next year is the sequel to one of those Noah Centino films.
To All the Boys I Loved Before.
Yeah, or is it the other one? Yeah, I guess it's probably that one. Yeah. All right. This reminded me of yesterday. There was a scene with a foosball table in this film, and there was in the Cloverfield Paradox yesterday. Two days in a row, there's foosball tables. That did my head in. I was like, oh my god, we saw foosball tables yesterday.
That's a very good point. Did you get a Christmas reference in this? I don't think so.
It's been a couple of days.
Me and Jesse have done triple or nothing that there's going to be no more Christmas references between now and Christmas.
Nah, there wasn't.
I don't think there was.
Can we go Halloween, festive season? Does that count? It's a festive event?
I'm going to say no, because it's like the 20th of December.
So how many episodes? We've got only 5 or 6 episodes to go before I lose my triple or nothing.
Yep. We don't know what the quantity of the bet is yet.
It's a good bet. I like a bet.
I just like winning. Yeah, there's nothing
no
at stake.
conceivable amount of what's going on.
If I win, I'll make it up. Good. So speaking of stakes, this had a budget of $10 million.
Yep.
Small budget.
What are some similar films?
Yeah, I think we've had something with $10 million before because this rings a bell with these films, but it's right in the hitting zone for horror films. So Halloween in 2018 did very well off a $10 million budget.
Blumhouse film where they give small budgets to whoever they want.
Yeah. Yep. But I tried to find some similar type comedy, maybe even romantic comedy films. So She's All That was $10 million. Love, Simon from a couple of years ago was $10 million.
We've definitely had a $10 million before.
Everything was $10 million.
Everything.
It's better than that one. Actually, Love Simon. The guy who plays Simon's in both those films. The Disaster Artist was $10 million, so was movie 43. So that's just an idea of what you can get for $10 million, and that's kind of where this film falls into it.
$10 million seems like a reasonable amount to get for it's a good budget.
John Whittington, the writer of this film,
sure,
conceived the idea after watching The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror 5.
Oh, wow.
So the one where Homer keeps going back in time, and every time he makes the smallest change, the whole future changes. So this is obviously the same sort of concept. I love any sort of Simpsons reference that's being brought into it.
I love the idea. I don't know if you've seen, there's this doco called Everything's a Remix. Highly recommend, but it literally says, there are very few original ideas, and everyone lends from something. So I like this idea that you combine, you mix it up. So you take that idea from Simpsons, you take a song from Back to the Future, you just combine all these ideas to make this film. I like that.
What's always good is when you get inspiration from anything. Like in this sense, he's obviously thinking, what would happen if you change the smallest thing, in this case, in a relationship? And then they show any sort of idea where you can think of something that makes you go, what is the answer to that? That's obviously an interesting idea, and that's why I like that. Cool. And then you get minds like Christopher Nolan, who writes Inception, and go, well, he's not copying anyone on that one. That's brilliant.
Yeah, good. I didn't have a Netflix match on this one. That's 2 films in a row where I didn't get a percentage match.
You want to know mine?
Yes, what was your match?
91%.
That doesn't surprise me based on our intro where I was like, MJ, I think this one's for you.
Yeah, I don't mind a rom-com, but like anything, I don't mind a good rom-com. I think we said the same with horror a few days ago.
Yeah.
I love horror, but if you give me a bad horror, Open House is going to get 1 star from me.
Half.
Nah, I gave it 1.
I gave it half. What is some consensus about this? What did the critics say? What does the audience say? What did you find?
Jesse, the IMDb audience really enjoyed this film.
Good.
And there was a lot of them.
Good.
6.4 out of 10. It's a great score. 36,500 ratings.
It's a lot of people, too.
A lot of people liked this film.
And I hadn't heard of this film.
No, neither did I.
Yeah.
Although when I put it on, my wife was like, "Oh, this film." I was like, "Oh, how the hell do you know this film?" She still didn't watch it with me. Letterboxd is 2.7 out of 5, so it is significantly lower on Letterboxd, but still 15,000 people have seen it. Not surprised that it's not huge on Letterboxd. They're not really into the sort of middle of the road rom-coms. Sure. What else have you got for that?
The Google thing keeps popping up now. Maybe because I looked at it once. Now I'm just going to get it in my feed.
Maybe it's always been there and you just ignored it.
94% of Google users like this film.
Is that right?
Which is pretty goddamn good.
Google users are very positive though.
Yeah.
From memory.
Rotten Tomatoes.
Yep.
43%.
Doesn't surprise me. Critics. No.
Only done 23 reviews though, so not a big turnout. So that's officially rotten.
Every time we say Rotten Tomatoes, you always go with only X amount of viewers.
Yeah.
I mean reviewers.
Well, it's because when I don't like Rotten Tomatoes, but when you go on and you look at a big film has a couple of hundred reviewers on there, and that's why when I'm like only 23, you can't. It's not a lot of critics,
not at all.
And it's a small percentage size, so. 23 people, you only need like 10 of them to think it's crap, and it gets a crap review. Yeah. The audience was 57%, so a little bit higher, on a bit under 800.
Yep. That's probably not too dissimilar to what we see on Letterboxd.
Yeah. Early thoughts, Tom?
Early thoughts?
What are your early thoughts on this one?
Friend of mine, actually. So I went to log this film on my Letterboxd account. We're big advocates of Letterboxd here on Flix Forum.
Is this a mutual friend? I think I've seen.
It is a mutual friend.
Yes,
a friend of mine on Letterboxd, I think, summed this film up perfectly. Mm-hmm. His review of this film was, you know what? It was okay. And that's exactly how I felt. Like, as soon as this film finished, I was like, that was all right.
I read that review too, so...
If you don't like Adam DeVine, you're really going to struggle with this film. And there's plenty of cringeworthy moments, but it's light and it's pretty wholesome. It's got an appropriate running time. And then, as I said, when it finishes, you're like... That wasn't bad.
Cool.
I should say, I did think early on that he'd end up with Carrie. Like, I think I thought it in the first 5 minutes of the film.
That's because you've watched a lot of rom-coms.
Maybe.
You know that generic mold that they follow.
Maybe. But they did kind of do enough to make me think he was going to screw that up. Like, he might not have thought that, or maybe the film wasn't going to go there. So they got there and I was satisfied with that as well.
Good.
What did you think of this film?
I don't reckon I want to tell my early thoughts because I want to pull you along for the ride and see what I give at the end. How does that sound?
That's your prerogative, if that's what you want to do.
I don't know, because I felt like at the start you're like, oh, I don't know how Jesse's going to go with this one. So I don't know whether I should
up to you,
tell you now and then you know how I'm feeling, or if I just go through our scenes and then
but
you sort of get a general
do you want to
gist.
be closed off? Are you going to be closed off in any of the rest of this podcast by...
I just wanted a big reveal at the end.
Sure.
No, I'm just being an idiot.
Big reveal will be fine.
Big reveal's good. I was similar. I actually sat down with my wife to watch this one. And unfortunately, she had to go to work, so she's only watched half of it at this stage. So I had to watch the back end by myself. And we were enjoying this together. I'm not a massive fan of Adam DeVine in Pitch Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't really like him in those films. And then to see him in this, I thought he was pretty good in this.
Yeah.
And I'm the same. I thought this was okay.
Yeah, good. I'm glad.
Yeah,
I like Adam DeVine. I should say it from the start. There's something about him I find him funny.
Yeah.
I've seen a little bit of Workaholics, which he's in.
Yep.
Which is everything I've seen him in. He's been a very similar character. Yeah. I like him in Pitch Perfect too.
All right. Well, let's talk about some characters while we're talking about Adam DeVine. Let's talk about his character Noah.
Yeah. Well, Noah was a pretty frustrating guy, and I think most of that was because he's pretty dumb and he's pretty very single-minded. Mm-hmm. So he's frustrating, but I don't think he was ever like malicious or rude for any other reason that he thought he was doing the right thing. Whatever loop he was in, he was convinced that this is the right idea. And as I said, I think that only works as an Adam DeVine type character, because I haven't seen a character where Adam DeVine is really clever or cluey and he always plays that kind of dumb type character. But if he was smarter, then he probably would have clued on a little bit too early about what to do and it wouldn't have felt real. So the balance of him being sort of dumb, rude and sweet kind of worked.
He was very single-minded, very obsessive and very straight, like not very open-minded at all.
No.
Like it was, he had this goal in his mind that he needed to be with Avery, and it didn't matter what happened or what deviated from that plan. And I like that you saw that change throughout each of the time continuums, I guess.
He was still driven in whatever loop it was. He was driven to do whatever it meant
to get her.
Yeah.
Not necessarily anything else in his life, but he was definitely driven to
Absolutely.
to focus on her. So Avery, we're talking about her.
So this was a weird character for me.
Yeah.
So you notice how Carrie and Ethan and Max, the other three characters in this film, they're still the same fundamental person during each revisit or loop, whatever you want to call it. Whereas I don't think Avery is. And I suppose it's a sign that the director wasn't putting as much focus on Avery's character as maybe she was. Yeah, they were.
Because she wasn't on set very often, so it's hard to build
true.
a character when she keeps nicking off.
But here's the way I saw things. The first night that Noah and Avery met, friend zone or not, you could absolutely see them working as a couple. And I think that's why at the end they sort of had Carrie being the jazz fan at the end. But that dynamic between them both, I'm like, of course, this works. I've got no reason to think it's not going to work. When they had that like friends with benefits type setup, she was a super bitch in the morning, and then she turned like quite lovely, normal Avery on the run and everything like that, and then she didn't seem to be as disgusted by him. So she just sort of kept changing. So when
Okay, yeah. I feel like that there was always, in any of the time changes, there was always a moment or a instance where this connection to Ethan was where that change in the character or the change, like where that switch was.
The idea was that they were never perfect for each other. That it was never going to work.
Yeah,
But I don't think they did that well enough, because sometimes I think it was going to work and sometimes I think they forced it to not work. And that was my only point. I'm probably nitpicking here, but that's why this character didn't work for me, because when they got married and they were really rich and they had that lavish lifestyle, she was only really disconnected with him because of his work. It wasn't the character itself that she didn't like. And at the end, when her and Ethan met at the bar, when they wanted to watch him play, and then you found out that she bought him that photo booth back at home, she was that same old lovely Avery. And again, as I said, like the other characters were the same person in all the things. They kept their morals, they kept everything. I felt like...
Because she was with Ethan in that last one, so it was whenever that connection with Ethan started, that's when
she became... Yeah, I guess. I'll give you that.
Because they're on the run, and then she finds out he's single. That's the switch.
True.
Ethan's vomiting in the toilet. That's the switch. Like it's always him that makes that switch.
Okay, that's not a bad... Like my point being is, whilst I like the idea of Noah and Carrie, that worked for me. I didn't necessarily buy into the fact that Noah and Avery couldn't have worked.
Yep. I watched this whole film until there's a scene where right near the end where I'm like, oh, him and Carrie's going to happen, and I didn't pick up on it early enough. So
see, I thought all along that Carrie was a better fit for him. I was like, this is fine. I didn't want him to end up with Avery. But I think they did this job where they built really good chemistry between them, and they kind of forced the disconnect between them. That's kind of where it didn't work for me.
Maybe I'm not used to the structure of these films, but I thought that Ethan and Carrie were going to get together like right up until the end.
Ethan and Carrie, right?
Yeah. So that's why it was a bit of like when the realization for me, it's probably about half an hour ago. I was like, oh, they're going to set Noah and Carrie up together, and I was like, I don't know if I like this. And then once they got into it, I did like it, because I was sold the whole time that Ethan and
right. I
Ethan
like
and
that.
Carrie were going to.
I've never even considered that.
Yeah, so that's that's how people read films totally differently.
Yeah, and that's what we love chatting about.
Yeah. So Carrie,
what do you got to say about Carrie? Because my thing is that I picked it up early.
Yeah, I didn't pick it up. I just thought she was going to be this person that continually made issues for him throughout the whole film, and then you obviously see that turn a little bit when in a few of the moments that they actually have a bit of connection, rather than the start. The first few, they hate each other pretty much.
She shows compassion for him at the very start, though, when she's driving his drunk ass around.
Yes, correct.
That's there straight away.
But then, like, the next two are her bashing him across the head with a pot plant and calling him a creep. So,
yeah, but that was a very different, dynamic.
But me reading the way I read it, I was like, okay, so we've had that. Now we're going back in time, so it's just going to get worse and worse for him. So I'd never had any inkling whatsoever, because I just assumed that their relationship was going to get more toxic and more toxic, whereas it didn't. It flipped, and I was like, whoa,
that's
cool. Wasn't expecting that.
She was a good fit for him personality-wise, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Sarcastic sense of humour. She was a little bit less settled, whereas Avery was like, this is my life. I'm going to be great.
Yeah.
More directionless, like him.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Ethan. He was too nice. Like, they mentioned this multiple times. He was just this fake nice guy that no one can be that
He
nice.
wasn't fake. Like, you meet guys like that. Like, you don't know them that well.
Yeah.
But what you know about them is just like the nicest guy. Because they didn't explore him deep enough to get to know the real guy. But I know guys that are that nice because I only know them on a surface level.
I'm just thinking, I'm like, MJ's probably that type of guy.
Yeah, but you know me deeper than that. I'm pretty
It's similar when you take your shirt off.
yeah, very similar.
You got that centaur bottom.
God, he's got a rig, hasn't he?
Oh, phew. He's a good looking guy.
I do like the fact that they kept him the same throughout, even though when he was that jealous onlooker, when he was the one that was drunk and throwing up, he still had that tinge of
niceness to him.
Yeah.
He felt bad about it still.
He was a great guy.
I had Max down just to briefly touch on Max.
Well, despite how Max actually saw himself, because he was dreadful with women, and it kind of worked well as like a subtle joke early on that he was terrible with women, even though he thought he was really good. When he was giving Noah advice, it was
Three
clear
S's or whatever.
Three A's, I think.
3 A's, yeah.
It was clear that wasn't going to work because they already set him up as the guy who's going to strike out. But his life was kind of this example of everything Noah didn't want. But
They tried to make out he did want.
well, Noah thought that that's what I need to do.
Yep.
But Max, despite all his flaws, was like comfortable with who he was, and I think that was kind of powerful in the end when you realise. I think he says something which I'll probably get to, but he gets to a point where he's like, yeah, this is who I am, and I wouldn't change anything because I like it.
Yep.
It's like, you know what, I think you're a douche and I wouldn't want to be you, but you know what, being comfortable in your own skin is what's more important.
Yeah.
Which is what Noah wasn't doing.
Good. Any other characters?
No, I've got no more.
The director, Ari Sandel, directed Goosebumps 2.
Directed Goosebumps 2.
And The Duff. I haven't seen it. Have you seen? You've seen
Love
The
The Duff.
You love The Duff.
Duff's really good.
Okay.
Very funny, very clever, like teenage high school rom-com.
Yep.
More comedy than rom-com. Surprised that a lot of people in that movie haven't done better.
Okay.
Robbie Amell's in it as well. He's the main.
Robbie Amell.
He's the main lead guy in
Yeah,
it.
he's doing well.
He also has won an Oscar for best short film in
I
2007.
thought you were gonna say Robbie
Not
Amell.
Robbie Amell.
I was like, what? How?
Ari Sandel won an
really?
Oscar for best short film in 2007 for his film West Bank Story.
Nice.
So he's got some
Cred.
He's got some cred, yeah.
Got a little bit of cred. What did you think of the cast?
It was fun.
Yeah, same.
Fine,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well cast. All right, time to look at some scenes.
Yeah.
What did you like?
Really early on, Adam DeVine does a pretty good Garth impression from Wayne's World.
I have exactly. I really liked that. I love Wayne's World, and I was like, that was like in the first couple of minutes, like that was really good.
It was really good.
Yeah.
He did a hell of a job. They didn't overdo it either.
No.
They just.
It was really good.
This is a good laugh. In the scene where he's getting hit with a pot plant the first time.
Yep.
So when he's like meant to be like that creepy stalker guy, and I think Carrie comes in. She goes, "Don't touch her asshole," and he goes, "Don't touch her asshole."
A lot of his lines were good.
Yeah, that was really clever. Just the way it was worded. They talk about how important those commas are. When Noah is driving Ethan home after Ethan's drunk in the rich loop, it was a really nice realization from Noah when he's talking to Ethan and he's sitting in the car going, "This doesn't work."
Yeah, the camera stays on his face and you just read that emotion really well.
And that goes into the next scene with one of his chats with Carrie, and he asks her, "Why doesn't Avery love me?" And he's not just talking about, why doesn't Avery love Rich me? He's talking about, in every fucking loop I go in, why doesn't Avery love me?
And he starts it off by saying, like, I know you know. Like,
Yeah.
why have you not told me? You've been sitting on this. Tell me, I know you know.
I really like that scene with him sitting with Carrie, and I think that was a time I'm like, you know what, they actually are going to make them together. Even though I thought they were going to, I was like, they're actually going to do it. I'm glad.
Good.
But I'm also glad that scene where he tried to hook up at Carrie at her house when she had a date.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't make that work because there are a couple of little tropes that made you think that they were just going to cheat this. Like, oh, they got together in the end, bang. Yeah. But they put a little bit more effort into it, which I appreciated. And I kind of touched on this before, but I really liked Max's final speech to Noah when they wake up in that loop when Max has got that.
And that that speech covers a lot of what the movie's about too.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But he's just talking about how he's happy with how he is. So,
Yeah.
And then I like the final, that little cute ending that went into the photo collage. Didn't do this big, like, we're going to show them get married and walk away and have a great... No, we're just going to show this cute little photo collage. And it was really nice. Good touch. Didn't overdo it. Well done.
Look, on the page, quite a few similar sort of things. So, at the start where Noah's really drunk, Carrie's driving him. I just got that sense of his personality and his humor where, like, he's sitting there waiting for her to be like, yeah, tell me the story. Like, this is the first time Avery and I met.
You like, got it out of me.
Fine, fine, I'll tell you. Like, I like that.
That was good chemistry between them too, because she's like, cool, don't want to know.
And when you look back on it, you're like, yeah, okay, right. They're setting it up. I did like the scene where, this is the night that they met, and he goes in for this kiss, and they make this big moment out of it. Like, he's expecting a kiss, she goes for the hug, and they just had these random cuts of, like, explosions and atomic bombs, and it was just great. It was really good.
That's how it feels.
Yeah.
Getting friend zoned.
Yeah, I thought that was really nice. Noah speaking Chinese. I was just like, I was not expecting him to just start speaking like, oh, I was like, whoa.
See, I was thinking like, well, surely he can just tap into this. I love the fact, and after that, when he's like saying everyone's name, he's like, hey, I know everyone's name.
But I like that in his time space, he knew how to speak different language, but he also forgot how to play the piano. I liked that they didn't just give him all these powers and not take anything away.
Good point.
It was nice to have that there.
Good point.
And the last one was another car scene. You mentioned the scene where you liked the emotion that you could see that he'd realised, Noah had realised that, him and Avery aren't going to work.
Yeah.
I like the pry bit to that where in the backseat, Ethan's like, oh yeah, and I also told her that, I love her, and he's like slams the brakes really hard and just hits his head. I had a good giggle. I thought that was good. All right, what didn't you really like?
So this really annoyed me. It probably happened 2 or 3 times because of the loop. The engagement party that they had should have been at night time. The fact that he was so drunk, and then on the flip side, Ethan was so drunk, and the fact that they kind of reference all these things about that night, and they talk about like, oh, I just hit it too hard. It shouldn't have been during the day. And I don't know why they didn't make it during the night, because everything else narratively fits better if it's nighttime. And it annoyed me from the very start, and it annoyed me.
I've been like that at many day engagement parties at that stage.
No, but just the way they talked about it was like, oh, I've been drinking all day. Like, it's like, mate, it's like 3 o'clock now. And at the night they drove to, I don't know.
Fair.
Should have been at night time.
Okay.
And that same night, the first time, sometimes Noah was like blind, indecipherable drunk. But then sometimes he was like quite normal and logical and thoughtful. It kind of annoyed me a little bit.
Yep.
It's sort of the pep talk from Max with the AAA, like foreboding everything bad that was going to happen in that entire loop. Yep. Like, they felt like, okay, I don't need 15 minutes to this loop. You've set it up straight away. I know it's not going to work, right? He's going to be a dick. It's not going to work.
Yep.
So that whole being an asshole loop was really tiresome for me.
Cool.
Didn't need Noah to say at the end, I just need to go back and do everything the same way I did it the first time. Because I knew that's all he had to do was like, no, everything's fine, mate. Don't change anything. You can still get with Carrie now because you guys get on. But he actually went back and said that. He didn't have to say that.
Yeah, good.
It annoyed me that he said it.
It annoyed me
just go and do it, mate.
When he's sitting at the table, like eating so much of the cereal because like you need to go buy cereal at this specific store. I was like, yeah, we get it.
And then right at the end, when Carrie sat down and started playing the piano, and she's like, "I love Oscar Peterson," I was like, it's a little bit too much. I believed it. I believed you guys anyway. You work as a couple anyway. You don't need to throw it in my face. That's all for me.
I mentioned this briefly before. The moment for me where I realized that Carrie and Noah are going to get together, that really like annoyed me.
Jarring.
Yeah, it jarred me. And so it's the scene where he's sitting in the kitchen talking to Carrie, and he's asking, why is she never going to love me? And then I was like, I just clicked, and I was like, oh. And for the next couple of minutes, I was really off put.
Yeah.
And that sort of the next few minutes, I was like, I don't know, like if I'm going to enjoy the rest of the film, but I was happy that it
worked.
It worked, but I still didn't like that scene. And obviously, you're on board a lot early in thinking that, but to me, that was the moment that it got me, and I was like, ugh, I
think about it this way: like, I could never imagine Ethan being the one left on the lurch Why? In what world does this movie end that Ethan doesn't end up with Avery? I guess you
I thought he was going to end up with Carrie. Yeah, that's where I was like...
That was the thing for me, is like, they're not going to let this guy who represents everything that's good in a relationship end up with nothing. What sort of message does that send?
Yeah.
That was kind of the main thing. And you could pick up that chemistry between...
But I didn't, like, and through all these flashes, though, I didn't necessarily think Avery was the most perfect person, whereas he was, and I was like, I thought, yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
That's it?
Yeah, that's
nice.
it for me. Yep. What's the movie trying to say?
Well, the message, as you touched on before, was basically Max's speech. And I've got the direct quote here, where Noah's, upset because, why didn't it work with Carrie? Like, it was fate. And he says, fate is a tricky lady. When you try to figure her out, you just get more confused. Listen, all I know is the mistakes I've made, the ladies I've laid, have made me who I am today. And if I were to go back and relive it differently, I wouldn't be me. And I like me. And I think that's kind of what the film's about.
Yep.
Be yourself. Learn from the past, but don't live in it. Don't try to change it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I liked this film as much as I did, because I really like that message. I think it's very wholesome. And I also like that it came from the character who's probably the most dislikable character, but he's happy with who he is, so that gives that message even more weight.
And if you didn't pick up on that speech, they do it visually too, with him wearing Max's clothes, and like, he's wearing the clothes like, this isn't me. So even if you didn't pick up, he didn't need to prove that he was as good as Ethan, because he didn't need to be. And like you mentioned, like being yourself, he needed to take care of himself almost, and take care of others in need. And that's where that connection with Carrie came. I think that you didn't really see her communicate with anyone else other than Avery, so it was nice that he sort of picked up on that.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that you are going to go back in time to change something is a slap in the face of all the decisions that you've made in your life to become who you are.
And that leads into like things. They made this big deal about things not happening for a reason. You had to create the opportunities himself and be real in the moments rather than expecting things to happen how he wanted them to happen. So I like that too. Growing up too, and you can't not forget about love in this. Like, relationship. They make this relationships are intangible. So I really like that. He realized who he loved and who he needed to love, rather than who he thought he was in love with.
Like that feeling of being in love with someone or having strong feelings for someone who is with someone else, so relatable. Everyone's been there at some point in their life, whether it's a high school crush or whether it's even bigger than that. Male, female, doesn't matter who.
Yeah.
That's what kind of works in this film. And if you sit there and go, man, if I had got with that person before they got with so-and-so, if I'd have done that differently, well, the message is, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Who you are today is great. It's based on who you've been in the rest of your life, and if you want to change that, change it now. Don't change it before.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, what did we take from this film?
Wouldn't it be fun? And this film becomes very different if we do it this way. And I'm very familiar with the rom-com setup and what's important and what works. But wouldn't it be fun if we didn't have to go to these complete extremes every time he loops? Like, imagine if you just tweaked little things about his life. I think it becomes probably a lot more of an indie film if you do it that way. But I'd be curious to watch that film as opposed to, I'm going to be a jerk in this film. I'm going to be a workaholic in this film. I'm going to
They were massive, yeah.
It changes everything. But I was just thinking because when it was like the dick one, when he was an absolute dick the whole time, like this is 15 minutes where stop it right now, and I could tell you exactly what's going to happen for the next 15 minutes. And sometimes sitting through that was a bit tough. So I don't know. That's when I was just thinking, like, imagine if this film just went a little bit different, did its own thing.
Yeah. Not as full on.
What did you take away?
To me, we mentioned this before, but this is like the Netflix film Naked, but better.
Yeah.
So this one there was a bit under about 10-ish sort of waking ups and reliving these times, whereas Naked there was so many more.
Like 50,
yeah. So to me, this is a lot tighter, a lot better.
It's a different concept in the sense that what was actually kind of cool about it, and this is the whole Simpsons thing.
Yep.
He would go back 3 years.
Yep. And then
to that moment, and then he'd come back to that day. It's like, okay, so this is what you did 3 years ago. Now let's see how that actually affected things.
This,
kind of a cool little concept in that sense. Yeah. It wasn't like a traditional, okay, 3 years, you're back in 3 years. You're not doing those 3 years again.
Perfect spot on Netflix.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Pretty good spot for it.
To be honest, if you had to release this in like school holidays or like end of year, probably would have done okay at the cinemas.
Yep.
Adam DeVine has some sort of following. Alexandra Daddario is kind of popular. Robbie Amell has got great abs, handsome man. I don't know. This can work commercially as well.
Yeah. Did you jump on IMDb at any stage?
Yeah, I did. You touched on this in the notes, but Max, who was Andrew Bachelor, was John from The Babysitter, which I didn't know at the time. But I was like, he's familiar. What's he in? Oh.
Yeah, Babysitter. Yeah. I didn't go on at all. So
too engrossed in the loops.
Yeah, I was just sitting and kind of enjoying this. I think is where I was at. Have you got any questions that you'd like to ask?
I do. This is an interesting topic.
Yeah.
I think when you study this film with your kids, which I'm sure this is rife for a study, what do you think is the significance of using a photo booth as the time travel vessel? Now, do you think it's like a cliche couple location? No one's really thought even more than that.
Yep. Is
it a representation of young, immature love? Or is it a device that makes lasting memories?
Whoa, that's heavy.
Yeah. I think it was an interesting, deliberate choice.
Yeah, I like the original or the first sort of moment where they go to the photo booth and Avery puts her ear against it and sort of says something about this is listen to the history or listen to that moment. And that photo booth allows him to visit their history over and over again. So
I think so too. And the tangible photo that you get out of it. So this booth is literally making memories for him, right? It's making a big part of his life, and he gets the chance to make more memories, redo that moment, make more memories. But I do think there's an element of that representation of young and immature love that he's going back for this reason that is like a schoolyard crush type feeling. And that's kind of that. I don't think people who have been married for 15 years are going into photo booths. Actually, it's a nice idea if they do, but the representation of a photo booth
exactly.
is
no, good pickup.
What have you got any questions for me?
So every time the films do it in different ways, what did you think about the mobile phone being the device that allowed you to understand what time it was for him? Did you find that off-putting, or did you
so every time he looks at the date?
So literally, it's like every time he wakes up, the way or when you know what loop is in is because of his phone. It says the time and the date. And they obviously used Halloween as that date, so you knew the difference between the 31st and the 1st or whatever it was. Was that effective?
To be honest, I didn't really need that. I could follow the progress of the story to know what was coming next. But
that was what I was sort of hinting at too. Not 100% sold on needing that.
I guess the first time he goes back, need
something to give context. Yeah,
not that because that's when he has the newspapers and stuff. But the first day he goes back and then goes back to 2017 afterwards. That's when you're like, hang on. So how is this loop actually working? You go back to 2014, then the next day it's 2017. That's which you didn't know initially. So that was kind of important for him to.
For the first time, I think, yeah.
Because then he rolls up. And he apologised. Hey, sorry for last night. Oh, who are you? Yeah. And it's like, that's the stalker guy. That's right.
Yeah. Cool. That was all I had.
I think if you watch this again, it'd be so easy to watch.
Yeah, if I watched it again, I'd probably be paying more attention to the connections between Carrie and Noah earlier on.
And you wouldn't, not that you have to work terribly hard, but you wouldn't have to work as hard to figure out what's going on. Wouldn't be too bad in a rewatch, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. I think we're almost ready to sum this up and give our rating out of 5 and then averaging it out for our Netflix forum rating. MJ, fill us in.
So, well, despite its flaws, and the film did have some, I think Adam DeVine carries this strange comfort with him. And despite me being 2 steps ahead of him throughout the whole narrative, it's somewhat satisfying watching him figure that out for himself. When the movie comes to a close, I almost surprisingly thought that it wasn't too bad. So it's 3 stars for me.
Okay, very nice. So the credits sort of are the way that I'm going to sum this film up for me. So you mentioned it before, like you cut to the credits and you just get this whole bunch of memories where there's these photos, these Polaroid photos of all these things that they do together, like at the end, Carrie and Noah. And I kind of got like shivers over those credits. And it doesn't happen very often.
Good shivers.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this is not. And then that song playing in the background was like, the lyrics were something about, I will follow you to the end of the world. I was like, it's a nice way to wrap up a film.
Maybe you're a bit of a rom-com guy.
Which is weird because I did at this when I first clicked, I was like, I don't like the idea of you and Carrie going together. So I was all over the shop. I I was all over the place. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel, and yeah, but I enjoyed it. So I'm giving it 3 out of 5 as well.
Isn't it? It's like this film was it was kind of good.
Yeah, so
it was all right. I like the way that you had that emotional response to it. Can you? No, obviously, we're very busy right now with watching these movies
every day of the week. Yes.
When you get a chance, my favorite rom-com is Definitely Maybe. Have you seen it? No. Definitely Maybe with Ryan Reynolds.
Okay.
Watch it. I love that film.
Okay.
Maybe you'll get some visceral responses from that as well.
Okay. I mean, my favourite rom-coms are Walk to Remember. Mandy Moore and Shane West.
That gets the feels.
That gets the tears every time.
That's bloody Nicholas Sparks.
It is Nicholas Sparks.
He likes to toy with emotions.
It's much better than The Notebook. Everyone loves The Notebook. Walk to Remember is so much better.
They're very different.
They are
actually,
very different.
They're not that different. But
they're
Nicholas Sparks always ties in some kind of like tragedy or sadness that makes you really hurt your heart a little bit.
Well, we are on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can listen to us on most good podcasting platforms.
You've already found us, so well done. Good.
Question of this week. It doesn't have to be a Netflix film, but at the moment, what's the best rom-com on Netflix? We've given our little suggestions now, so that's nice. It was a good lead-in. What's the best rom-com on Netflix for... I want to know, because I want to see if I can give another rom-com a go, and I'm looking forward to Definitely Maybe. Was it? No?
Definitely Maybe, Maybe. I don't even know it's on Netflix, but...
That's all right. Anyone else, hit us up. What's on Netflix that's a good rom-com? Doesn't have to be an original.
And even if it's not on Netflix in our region, if it's on Netflix in your region, wherever you're listening, chuck it on there. That
was a really good tie-in. I liked that.
Well, it's important.
Because MJ doesn't know the question, so that was good. I like that. Well, we're back again tomorrow.
We are.
We're back again tomorrow. So, tomorrow...
What do we got tomorrow?
We have a 2018 Indian romantic comedy. So,
tomorrow,
foreign film. It's called Love Per Square Foot.
You said romantic comedy, yeah?
I did.
Maybe this is our answer.
Maybe this could be the next good recommendation.
Maybe it is.
It's directed by Anand Tiwari, and it stars Vicky Kaushal and Angira Dar. So, give it a watch if you want to join in with us tomorrow when we check this
out. You're talking to me. I'm like, no, I have to watch it.
I know you're going to watch it. You better watch it.
Give it a watch if you want to be on the podcast tomorrow, MJ.
I'm going to sit here by myself just going, yeah.
All right, awesome. So, I think we still need another romantic comedy to get us through podcasts.
2 in a row.
Yeah, I'm all right with that.
What are the chances of Christmas being in this one?
Well, there's only one way to find out.
We'll see. All right, well, thanks again. And
thank you, mate.
I'll see you again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening.